already been predetermined and pre-scripted. Make sense?
Yes. Hey, over here. He's all right with everybody if we record around?
Yeah.
I
I know that most people forget, but if y'all get a chance, I'm not even gonna ask you, you could send us the recording, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you're like super interested in getting it, just in Facebook one of
For
us.
sure, yeah, I would definitely do that. Yeah, we're pretty mad about it, so we don't expect anyone else.
We forget.
Oh, yeah, right there, you know, we'll do it, of course, yeah.
Well, you know, that's
In there, no, guilty. Or just use the chair.
We have a podium. Yeah, we've got a little tabletop, we can use that.
I guess there's gonna be a plan session today.
Let's hope so.
So there isn't gonna be one.
Oh, y'all said, no, actually, I'm down, just gonna take this until y'all are good.
I mean, we're gonna use this anyway, so might as well say it.
What's the topic of the workshop?
The United States federal government should give back Guantanamo Bay to Cuba, something like that.
Specific is the United States should return control of Guantanamo Bay to Cuba.
Alright. Yeah. Take it. Thank you so much. Of course. Okay. Everybody down? Everybody ready? Also, I've been warning everyone, I've got bronchitis, so if I run out, it's just because I'm coughing a lot and I don't want to like stop the round. Keep it going. I will most likely lose. And if I'm speaking too quietly, because I've been doing that, because I've been, yeah, someone shout at me.
Well, IDOC speaks big time for bronchitis, so.
That was
Damn. We're hearing from everyone. All right, everybody ready?
Yep.
Observation one is going to be the background. The U.S. has had control of Cuba since the 1900s, and Cuba has been protesting this since 1959. They've been asking for the land back and saying it's a violation of their sovereignty and a violation of international law. Next is going to be the inherency. The U.S. has no plans to close down Cuba. The status quo. They've in fact invested $40 million into opening new schools near Cuba for Navy personnel, indicative of the fact that they're not going to close Cuba now. Thus, the plan text. The United States should return control of Guantanamo Bay to Cuba. Again, the United States should return control of Guantanamo Bay to Cuba. It's the resolution. Advantage 1. A is going to be the uniqueness. 1 is going to be the failure to close Guantanamo Bay as a signal of U.S. human rights violations. The A is going to be that the UN has criticized us for not closing down Guantanamo Bay, specifically for not having trials and for the torture that we've been doing. The B is going to be that the EU anti-terror chief says that this has killed the U.S. position in the world and has been one of the leading causes of increasing terrorism. The 2 is going to be that Guantanamo Bay is the #1 focal point of criticism for United States foreign policy. The A is going to be that Angela Merkel, the ACLU, Amnesty International, Ban Ki-moon, Colin Powell, the EU Parliament, the Human Rights Watch, Kofi Annan, and the UN Human Rights Council have all expressed that Guantanamo Bay should be shut down. That's the biggest threat on U.S. soft power, and the biggest reason why nations see the U.S. as not a nice actor. I don't have prettier words for that. Thus, the solvency. 1 is going to be the plan is an unexpected shift from U.S. policy, extend across the inherency, indicative of the fact that when we simply increase money that's going to be going to Guantanamo Bay in a world where we suddenly shut down Guantanamo Bay, this seen as a huge shift away from the direction of U.S. current policy. But 2 is going to be the plan is a shift in U.S. policy because we're not just closing it, but we're returning Guantanamo Bay, which means that we respect the sovereignty of other nations, and we say that this also will increase U.S. cooperation with Cuba, specifically because Cuba's been asking for the plan. The 3 is going to be that normal means that we have to try the detainees. In a world where we close down Guantanamo Bay, that means that we have to bring the detainees back to the States or let them go. Normal means indicates that we have to try these individuals, since the reason that we hold them in Guantanamo Bay is that it's on international lands and therefore they don't have to go under a trial. However, U.S. law mandates that these individuals do face even a military tribunal, at least some kind of trial when they get to the United States, which means that we're going to have to be able to show evidence and a justification for why we're detaining these individuals, and that some are going to inevitably be released. The 4 is going to be that this meets the call of all international actors. Thus the impacts, one is going to be soft power. We say that soft power is key to international coalitions, which allows for sharing of basing rights. It's the only reason that we're allowed to have basing rights in Turkey, and that we're allowed to form international coalition to fight things like IS and fight things, and groups like IS and ISIL and ISIS. The two is going to be the impact is terrorism. One is that we've seen an increase in terrorism, the status quo right now. The only problem is that we're not able to fight in any coalitions to be able to attack IS. Groups like Australia, nations like the UK all have individual plans to be able to fight ISIS. However, they don't have one coherent way to be able to target them. We said that without the plan, we cause an increase in terrorism. This increase in terrorism, number one, leads to a few impacts. We say the first impact is going to be an attack on the United States. We say that no matter what this attack on the United States looks like, empirically it's proven that the U.S. uses a whole lot of force when other nations attack us. We said this specifically bad though, but since the main base of operations for ISIS is going to be in Syria, in a world where we attack Syria, which has been the U.S. response to terrorist attacks, we say that this means that regional allies get pulled in, such as Russia, who's backing the Assad regime, and in a world where that happens, this means that this escalation of conflict always goes hot, because game theory proves that if you don't act first, you die, which means that there's no benefit to not attacking. In a world where this is true, that means that both Russia and the U.S. escalate to nuclear conflict immediately. We say that this nuclear conflict goes to extinction in a world where simply where launching our nuclear weapons, where we say that launching nuclear weapons doesn't necessarily acidifies the ocean, and any increase in pH in the ocean kills off phytoplankton, which we say destroys 80% of oxygen on Earth. These are an oxygen crunch, we all die. Real sucks. Advantage 2. Biopolitics. Sorry, advantage 1 is soft power. Advantage 2 biopolitics.
Question?
Yeah, you're one.
Okay, so you're just getting the base back, right? And you're shutting down.
Shutting down, giving back. All the land's theirs. Everything. We take all U.S. troops off of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Advantage 2 is going to be biopolitics. The uniqueness. Once Guantanamo represents the regime of biopolitics, the A is going to be that it exists to avoid international law because people don't know of its existence, because people are not supposed to know of its existence, therefore they can't criticize it. The 2 is going to be that however the U.S. has failed to keep it a secret. Videos have recently come up showing that we are literally force-feeding people. The reason we have to force-feed them is because they would rather die than live in the realm of U.S. biopolitical control. The 3 argument is going to be that this operates in a sphere of international legal illegality, which is the ultimate state of exemption in a world where we say that even though these actions are illegal because you can't see them, they're technically legal, and because we're doing it on Cuba, it's technically legal, even though it would be illegal if we were doing it on the United States. We say the state of exception is the reason why we allow the biopolitical state to continue through the next thing that's solvency. Number 1 is going to be cross-supply or solvency. Number 1, that we return control, which shows our respect for sovereign land, and we admit guilt over the fact that we've committed atrocities in Guantanamo. The second argument is going to be that the trial necessarily mandates that we have evidence, which means that the normal legal principles have to apply to all prisoners all U.S. prisoners. The three argument is going to be that the plan would spill over. The reasons for this is number 1, it's unexpected, and number 2, it sets new precedents in which we admit wrongdoing, which means that in the future we can't do the same thing again, because when the U.S. has already admitted that this wrongdoing has occurred, admitted that this violates international law, that kills any ability for any future president, for perhaps President Trump, to reopen Guantanamo. Thus the impacts. 1 is going to be biopolitics justifies all impacts. We say that biopolitics necessarily justifies all impacts because it creates a life versus bare life dichotomy, in which we say that this is not true, this is simply a living, a human body which we can commit any kind of crime to, and we say that we necessarily solve for this because, simply cross solvency. The next is going to be that we create this life is without value, which means that we see this not as a human body, or not as a person, but as a human body, which we can commit all forms of violence to. The second is that politics, that this means that whenever the political climate shifts again, when President Trump takes office, or whoever else, probably President Marco Rubio takes office, we say that this means that they can simply shift the political spectrum towards who the enemy is and redefine what bare life is, and only the affirmative can solve for this. This leads to all forms of impacts because it means that this is going to be the internal link to any forms of violence, because only in a world where we see someone as an other and instead of as a human can we commit violence against them, and this means that this is going to be the internal link to all forms of atrocity and all forms of genocide. In a world where we simply create a bare life versus life dichotomy, we see that this justifies any kind of intervention, any kind of violence on the part of the United States, because we no longer have to see these individuals as human beings, and therefore we can do whatever we want to them by controlling them through the biopolitical state.
Alright, we're just going to be 2 off, 1 is long. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to move my face
It's
to
a
my...
really good politics dissent.
Yeah.
6 pages of links.
7. Oh, wait. Beat me to it.
Is the first one McKay or I guess the second one?
The second one.
The second one was
The
the
second one is
Okay.
So, just a question, how are you going to float so we can kind of
Do you just do them each page on something? each on something?
I mean, I don't know, will just float, I guess,
Okay.
however y'all have it float, so, I try and separate the things into different pages, but what I mean, I'm gonna do it however you wanna do it.
Alright, cool.
Okay, so it's gonna be 2 off. The second one is long as a K. Then there's gonna be a pretty lengthy case stuff that I would suggest you flow on like a separate sheet of paper, or on the like inherency flow, whatever. And then it's gonna be advantage one advantage. Okay. Okay. Sorry.
Oh, there they are, okay.
Yo, this is weird. Okay. Is anyone not ready?
Okay.
Okay. First off, topic out of the A-sub is going to be the interpretation of Guantanamo Bay is the body of water off the coast of the Caribbean currently occupied by U.S. naval forces. The violation is going to be that they get back. Okay, yeah, sorry. The interpret again is that Guantanamo Bay is the body of water off the coast of the Caribbean currently occupied by U.S. naval forces. The B-sub is violation. They get back the Guantanamo detention camp, which is the land-located, landlocked military prison, not the water around the Caribbean. The C-sub is going to be the standards. The first is position. If
Precision.
Yeah, position. If we wanted to get back to prison, the revolution or the resolution we refer to it as the Guantanamo Detention Center. The AF adds those words into the resolution. All the literature refers to it as a detention center, but Guantanamo Bay is just a bay of water. The second center is ground. The AF advantages are based off of the prison center. There is 0 ground that they.
These are advantages they don't normally give with the rest.
Yeah, these are advantages that they do not give the resolution. Their entire affirmative is based off of ground. The resolution doesn't specify. The voters are going to be first. The topic county is an A priority. The second is that it's a vote for fairness in education, and the third is that you should always be looking at this through a lens of competing interpretations, because competing interpretations are going to inevitable insofar as compare standards. The next off is going to be criticism. The ASA the framework. The first argument is that the role about is to interrogate the ontological foundations of sovereign power. Again, the role about is to interrogate the ontological foundations of sovereign power. The second argument that ontology is a prior question. Ontology says the status for all decisions that we make because what we value is based off of our understanding of ourselves. The third argument is that debate is key because debate provides a binary endorsement of whether or not an ontology is good or bad. The B-sub the links. The first argument is particularism. The plan only ends a particular state of exception without ending the ontological capacity of the sovereign. This means that they only look at a specific instance of which the state is exercising their state of exception and saying, oh, we end this, we end all the state exceptions, but that is problematic. The second is that of rights. The state says who gets rights based contingent upon state participation. This means that the state becomes the ultimate arbiter of rights because they are the ones who are saying, oh, you get rights if you operate within us, but you don't get rights because you don't. The third argument is threat. Yeah, what?
Yeah, if the state doesn't define who has what rights, who defines the rights?
You say rights are probably a bullshit concept.
Okay.
The third argument is going to be threat construction. The one anticipation of death in summary creates a state of emergency that subjugates the agency of the population to this day. They literally create the state of exception insofar as they construct these threats, and the construction of threats is what allows the state to subjugate the population because they're acting in the name of the greater good. The fourth link is going to be masking. They end public criticism of sovereignty by closing the most visible audience of the sovereign violence. This makes the public think that the problem is solved. You can cross-apply their solvency claims from their second advantage to indicate that they think this is true. The C-sub is going to be the impacts. The first argument is going to be endless atrocities. They fuse safety with the political. This means that security is always going to be prioritized within the legal system, which means that atrocity is going to be justified in the name of the good. And so far as the political is always going to be advocating for the safety of the population, they're allowed to do whatever the population in the name of the greater good. The second impact is going to be error replication. They create a false division between life and death that creates a normative subjugation of law and an indistinction between a valuable life and a non-valuable life. They create the Durham Missile Man, which is an example that Bowman uses to describe a person who is homosexual, who does have her life, but they're essentially alive, they don't have any value to their existence under the context of the state. The D-sub is going to be alternative. Vote negative to endorse whatever being in opposition to the affirmative maintenance of sovereign power. Again, vote negative to endorse whatever being in opposition to the status.
The alternative is unconditional.
Oh, it's unconditional. Okay, good enough.
No.
The first argument is that the state constructs a series of contingent histories of life which defines modernity. They look back in the history of its population in order to understand what the current state of society is and what it means to be a citizen. The second argument is that the alternative is the sole way to solve the affirmative because the whole refuses the codified compartmentalization of our existence. Whatever being is the only way to actually say, hey, fuck this state, we're not going to be a part of your categorization, which is the only way to solve back to the violence that's decided within the affirmative. The third argument is that they don't have any perms because perms are the worst form of paranoid exceptionalism because they're saying, oh shit, we got perceived, we better use this state to solve back to the problem that the state is, which doesn't make any sense. The next, now in the case. The first term is going to be the governmentality term. The A sub 1 is that role-playing in the state creates a filter through which all actions must be passed. The B sub 1 is that this prevents critical questioning of the state and its epistemology because we are always acting through the actor of the state, which prevents us from actually criticizing the notions of the state. The C sub 1 is going to be that the impact is existential violence and disposability that is that is checked back by questioning normative knowledge production. Whenever we are able to check back for this normative knowledge production, we're able to say, hey, fuck this existential violence, that's not okay, but we can't do that when we're operating with the state. The D sub 1 is that whatever being solves back for this because we become indifferent to what the state says is acceptable knowledge. The second term is nihilism. The A sub 1 is that the notion that role-playing as the government is a prerequisite constructs politics as something that is out there instead of something that we operate in. The B sub 1 is that this means that we as individuals can never believe that we're able to engage in politics, which means that this allows the state to exclude us. The C sub 1 is that this creates this causes the reduction of the subject to bare life because we're no longer able to operate within the political spectrum, which means we're always going to be subjugated to politics. You can cross-apply the impact of analysis coming up with K. The third term is going to be the complacency dissent. The A sub 1 is that role-playing at the state means that we're complacent. We use the state's power, and this
We use the state's power, thus we become the state's power.
Thus we become the state's power. This privileges us in the what?
In ways that we would be privileged elsewhere.
In ways that we would be privileged elsewhere. The basic point is that this means, there's a zero. God, dude, I can't read your handwriting. What the fuck does that say?
Where?
There.
You can't question the state violence. You can't question the state violence because internal.
Right. So when we can't question the state violence because we're complacent in the state power, that is going to be the internal link in all state violence because whenever we can't question the state, they can get away with whatever the fuck they want. The fourth term is going to be error replication. The A sub 1 is that performing the state means that we are the actor, the PMC, will be a position informed by Western epistemology. That excludes critical perspectives because we're never able to look at alternative ways of knowing, but rather we're always going to be looking at the Western way of knowing codified by the state. The B sub 1 is that even if we can challenge the state, nothing changes because the answers to questions are exchangeable and predetermined. So even within the context of challenging the state, we're always going to be looking for the answers that the state determines as acceptable knowledge production because they structure what epistemology is deemed acceptable. The C sub 1 is that this leads to disposability of the subject because our actions have already been determined by the state. The fifth term is agonism. The A sub 1 is that the affirmative engages in political
struggles against enemies.
Against political struggles against enemies, they specifically identify terrorists as being like these problematic individuals of which there's no reconciliation to be had. The B sub 1 is that antagonism is bad because it leads to a friend-enemy distinction instead of an ally-adversary distinction, which is always going to lead to all of violence against the other group. Never view that other as somebody that we can actually cooperate with, but rather violence against inevitable because they're always our enemy. There's no cooperation to be had. The sixth term is going to be ideology. The A sub 1 is that the app attempts to make global capital benevolent by bringing
By giving back something that it did previously.
Yeah, they attempt to make global capital benevolent by giving back something that had been previously stolen. The B sub 1 is that this means we stop questioning global capital. You can look at their spillover claims as a reason why this is true, which means global capital thrives and capital is problematic because systems of ethics are impossible under capital, and so far as they inform our decision making and they're always going to be informed by greed and lust. All right, now the advantages. First, they indicate that our hegemony is low now because of the Guantanamo Bay. However, this is going to be totally crap. The Guantanamo Bay is not going to be an indication of our power, like smart power. The application of hard and soft power is going to be key internal linkage to the state of our soft power. And they indicate that this is going to be perceived as an unexpected shift. However, this is not true because we're working on normalizing relations with the Cuba right now and the Cuban embargo, which would indicate that this is just a logical consequence of the status quo. They indicate that normal means that we would subject these detainees to trials. That's probably a link to a gunman. And then they indicate that we need to stop terrorism. However, terrorism is caused by our emphasis on hard power, not our ability to exert soft power. We can't be diplomatic with terrorists. On the second advantage, so their new precedence argument is probably a link to masking, and biopolitics is going to be inevitable in the state. You can cross-apply the Agamben analysis. This is why this is true.
Okay, the order is going to be T, advantage 1, advantage 2, the K stump, and then the K.
Do you want to stand?
Yes, please, actually.
T.
T.
Rights.
T.
Fight power. Sorry, focus on T.
Yeah, so it's T, add 1, add 2, and biopolitics being brought to 2, the K stump, and then the criticism.
I'm sorry, I'll one more time for me.
Okay, T,
Yeah.
add 1,
Okay.
add 2, K stump, critique.
Okay. Awesome.
Everybody good? First topic is we need to get back to Guantanamo Bay. As we get back to Guantanamo Bay, that they specify as well. Next is going to be the counter interpretation. Guantanamo Bay is the area that includes the detention camp. Again, it's the area that includes the detention camp. We have a couple of reasons for. One is going to be the literature base. Literally every debate that's happening in the international sphere right now, specifically with the UN, and all of our war zone cases about people who told us about getting back Guantanamo Bay. They didn't care about the body of water. They actually cared about getting back the place that was based on the human rights abuse where that happened. Now I'm going to the standards. That one they say precision. However, they don't understand that their precision of debate is actually creates it really bad because it means that they're unable to debate what the actual topic is talking about. That means that we're actually also going to be a very precise definition that's going to be able to meet the stakes off. We say that we have the other standards of common use and international debate, which means that whenever people talk about Guantanamo Bay, they always refer to this. You should always prefer international debate. What time do you have?
I don't have, did y'all start somewhere?
Yeah.
Thank you, sorry.
Okay. This is able to talk back for all their talks about precision. Also, number 2 is ground. We are the internally ground because we're the only predictable one. Lulz, if you think that anybody cares about the body of water around Guantanamo Bay, they only care about this. Now, going to the voters, you should evaluate this on reasonability because topicality is a one-shot kill the affirmative. We define reasonability as if we win a single standard, that means you should always default to the affirmative. Also, it prevents from a race to the bottom on topicality, which means that the affirmative can never win. Also, they cannot possibly lose on T, they can just not win it. Now, going to advantage.
Sorry, what does that mean?
That means that we're not going for an RBI, we can't get offense on T. Okay, go to advantage 1. Okay, I want you to extend across the unions about how currently there's been massive amounts of human rights violations. Then I want you to extend across the something about how Glenn would be able to solve this. This is not something that their alternative will be able to resolve because it means they are completely rejecting the ability for the state to act, which means that we can never solve back for any kind of state-based violence, which means you completely see the political and means people like Donald Trump and Dick Cheney be the ones running politics right now. You are literally a form of anti-politics that makes it impossible for us to engage in any kind of real change in the world. Now I'm going to their specific arguments. It is not true because hard power is really high and we're not indicative of that. However, they can see the internal links about how there are currently individual plans between these countries. However, there's no coalition that's guaranteed to check back for terrorism, specifically in this instance. That means they're never going to be able to solve back for this. Next off, they say that this is not unexpected because we're normalizing relations. However, they concede the argument that there is currently no way. There is a massive time frame problem with this argument because currently, even though we are trying to normalize relations, we really extend across the heresy argument how we literally just spent $40 million opening new schools. This means that we are expected to be there for the very long run over in Guantanamo Bay. They say the trials will probably be linked to biopower. However, I'm going to answer this back later, but also they say that the exercise of hard power is linked to terrorism. However, they are completing an historic analysis. They don't understand that the amount of people that are terrorists right now are people who are currently there and have already experienced the United States hard power. So the only thing we can do is check them back. The terrorism becomes inevitable in the world of the negative because there's literally no historic analysis. We were assholes in the past, but that doesn't change the fact that if we suddenly say, oh, sorry, they're suddenly going to go away. No, this is Brexit. They're never going to be able to counterbalance. Also, across the impacts of terrorism, this is going to outweigh because nuclear war leads to extinction and death is going to be a prerequisite to life. Or life is going to be a prerequisite to any form of being. Okay, go to biopolitics right now. There's a very devastating argument that I want you to extend across here. First, extend across the uniqueness about how this is the #1 issue right now. However, I want you to extend across our solvency #3 point about how this is unexpected and cannot do it again. Therefore, that means that we would create spillover into other areas of United States policy. This means we have a sufficient enough leeway in order to be able to access solving back for other forms that are currently masked. That means we are not going to engage in this form of masking, but we're actually going to bring these issues to light and cause a spillover that massively decreases biopolitics. Only the affirmative has a chance to solve back this because the negative is going to be a form of extra that they cannot resolve. Okay. Extend across the, that's all I need on that. They say that, what was the second argument they made?
Argument good.
Yeah, they didn't really make anything there. Going to the case study. I want you to group all of these arguments. They engage in a form of anti-politics that makes it impossible for them to actually create any kind of real-world change. I'll show you why on the criticism, but none of these arguments matter in a world where the state is inevitable. The state is inevitable for a couple of reasons. One is that people always care about their safety first and foremost. They say this is particularly true whenever we're young. We see that the relationship between a mother and child, or between a father and a child, is always going, or a parent and child, is always going to engage in some form of fashion where they prioritize their own people in order to protect them. There's a biological need in order to protect people who are close to us. Second is that we have a form of in-group thing that becomes inevitable in a world where biology is a thing. Literally, we understand the people who are closer to us better than the people who are far away from us. This means that the state becomes inevitable in this region. Third is that we see that the nation state has their alternative literally has no way of breaking down the nation state, which means that there's absolutely no way they can destroy this. Because literally, if they talk about how the state, using the state at all makes the impacts null, there's no way they can are able to resolve this. Say that we engage in nihilism. How are we the only ones taking any kind of positive action in order to change politics? That means that we are the only ones who are capable of resolving the biopolitics impacts, but also all the impacts of the concerns. The only other argument they might have gained on here is the air replication. However, they have done nothing nothing on the case to show where we are wrong. That means that literally all of our warranted analysis is cold conceded, which means that they should have to engage with the specifics of our words in order to be able to understand this. This is the only thing that's falsifiable. All of their ontological claims are completely bunk. The only other thing they say is that we cause ideology, and that calls global capital, the antagonism turn. They don't understand a historic analysis of how enemies are created. That means that these enemies, even when you suddenly change your way of thinking, are still going to be enemies because of the way we acted in the past. This is something that cannot be changed, and therefore it means that enemies become inevitable. Go on to the critique. Okay. One, the role of judges to vote for the most net beneficial team against the most net beneficial advocacy. Again, the role of judges to vote for the most net beneficial advocacy. We have a couple reasons for a little lazy ground. We say that there's no way that you can falsify any of the claims of ontology because there's no way to know the ontology or the impacts of the ontology without looking at the impacts of the case itself. That means there's really no way you can falsify any of these claims. They're literally just claims without any kind of backing that can be tested in empirics. This means that there's absolutely no way for us to ever understand the impact of criticism in the real world. This means you're never able to solve back for this. Also, we say that the ontology is shaped by our decision. Ontology is shaped by the impacts of our decisions rather than ontology shaping our decisions themselves, because the only way for us to ever understand what is a good and what is not a good decision is based off of the impacts of decisions that we've already made. So therefore you should evaluate the impacts of the affirmative before you evaluate the impacts of criticism. Also, we do get access to our impact, we do get access to our impact because you should be weighing, because this is A, key to ground, but also B, we see that our ontology is saying that we should use to take create change inevitably results in things like this, especially when we reject biopolitics, which means we're able to resolve all this. Now going to the link below. First off, say particularism, this decreases ontological capacity. However, there's no more for why this actually matters in this way. We say that particularism in this is going to be good because it allows for us to focus on a specific issue and understand the impacts of that decision. Therefore, this allows for us to create different modes of thought. Next off, we say that the rights and therefore rights are a bullshit concept. That literally means that all life gets reduced to bare life because there is no reason for us to keep it alive aside from whether or not we think it benefits us. This is a direct link back into the criticism, the impact of endless atrocities because they're inevitably going to link back into their own criticism. Next off, they say that we cause threat construction. However, we say that the idea of threats is going to be inevitable, and where threats are going to inevitably be real. We say that the security dilemma created through threat construction exists, and when even one person accidentally threat, there's an asymmetric distribution of the information that the alternative is able to result, which means that inevitably you are going to cause, even if the United States suddenly stops being buried by a political system, it means Russia is going to be engaging in this, which means there's still inevitably going to be a threat that is going to face and reaffirms the entire unit of the United States. Also, they say masking. We say no. We're able to resolve this. There's policy on advantage too. Go to the alternative. Okay. Okay. One is perm, do the app, and endorse whatever be. Again, do the app and endorse whatever be. We say this could be able to solve back for the entirety of the number 1 point on their solvency about how this creates a continuing history of life, which allows for us to create the good life, bad life, divide. However, we do not see the political like data because they say that we cannot engage in the state, but because they literally criticize the state's foreign sovereign power, we need to be able to utilize the sovereign power in order to create good powers. We opposed to them who creates a form of ethical nihilism where we literally have no reason for acting. Also, Occupy Wall Street proves that without any kind of political emphasis or engaging in the government, you're not going to be able to create world change because Occupy Wall Street achieves nothing as opposed to the Tea Party.
The order is top county.
Okay. I wonder what they're going for.
Guess no. Nope. Anyone not ready?
Oh wait. Now I'm ready.
Oh, did you give me their timer back?
Yeah.
Okay.
You gonna start your timer?
This
This is not good.
Right. This may sound like a silly toppicality argument, but they have fundamentally mishandled it. I think we will control and internally to all of their standards now. Goes to the line by line. The first argument, the first argument he says is that they need because they give back Guantanamo Bay. The first argument he gives you no explanation of what part of Guantanamo Bay they give back, which means that there is no way they meet our interpretation. Second argument is that there's this doesn't make any sense. Whenever the point of information that I asked during the PMC, I say, are you just giving back just giving back the land? And he said yes, but you're giving back Guantanamo Bay and all the land that it involves. He did not say that they were giving back he did not say they were giving back Guantanamo Bay, which is the body of water, which means that we are winning what Guantanamo Bay actually is contextually. The third argument is you can look at their advantages, which indicate that both of which are predicated off of their giving back of the actual prison facility, not the giving back of the body of water, which means that there's no risk they meet our interpretation. All of their offense is predicated off of their ability to get back to prison, which means no way they meet the interpretation. They also say the counter interpretation to which it includes detention complex, but they do not say what includes the detention complex, which means that we're going to be waxing on the contextualization of what Guantanamo Bay actually is. Furthermore, I would say that they don't meet their counter-interpretation because just including Guantanamo Bay does not mean that they only have to, just including the detention facility does not mean they only have to get back the detention facility. It means they have to get back the body of water in addition to the prison facility. However, that would make them extra topical, which means that there's no way you're voting there either, because extra topicality, which as we already see, gives them access to advantages like biopower, which give them unfair access to link terms and things like that, as you saw in the Goffin and the case terms, which means that there's no reason that the counter-interpretation is preferable. He also says lib-based, but he has made a big mistake in that he concedes the warrants of the precision standard. That if the resolution wanted them to talk about the prison facility, the resolution would have said Guantanamo Detention Center, not just Guantanamo Bay. They have conceded that this is what all of the literature refers to. This turns 100% of his lib-based argument. He says that we can't debate. He says it's about human rights, and so obviously the framers were talking about the prison facility, but that does not answer the argument we make that if it was going to be about the prison facility, they would have included that language in the resolution. They've also conceded the fact that they add language to the resolution, which turns 100% of their lib-based arguments. Which means that they aren't actually accessing the lib-based because they're adding words to the resolution that weren't there. This means that they are not. This means that their lib-based standard doesn't matter. And furthermore, we control the interlink to a predictable lib-based. Now he says that precision. He says precision is bad, which means we can't debate about the topic. But he again concedes the warrant from the LOC that indicates that if they wanted to debate about the detention facility, they would say Guantanamo Detention Center, not just Guantanamo Bay. In the case that the framers of the resolution were intending it to be about the bay of the body of water where the United States has military, has naval units stationed, but they were probably intending to debate about U.S. influence in the coastal area, which means that there's no reason they should get access to any of their human rights or any of their biopower arguments. Now he says common use. But he has conceded our argument that the literature indicates that if the framers wanted it to be about Guantanamo Bay, that they would uniquely say Guantanamo Detention Center. Furthermore, I think that common use of furthermore, I think the common use of the phrase Guantanamo Bay is specific to the water. I think the common use of the detention center is Guantanamo Detention Center, not Guantanamo Bay. It means that there's no reason you're going to prefer their common use counter standard. Now he says ground. He says that they are the only one that he says their interpretation is the only one that's predictable. It's the interlink to ground. But our argument is that the literature itself sets a very clear standard for what is predictable and what is in the literature. The literature specifically says Guantanamo Detention Center, which means that there is not a use of predictable ground. Furthermore, I think you should prefer what the literature discussing Guantanamo Bay mentions refers to Guantanamo Bay as, not their common use standard. Especially whenever they ask that we play role play as policymakers, means that you can only look at what the term of art that the literature uses means that our interpretation is always going to be a prior question and a better interpret. They say reasonability, that if they put a standard in, then you default to their first argument. This is nonsense. They do not explain what it actually means to be reasonably topical. Just putting a standard does not automatically prove that the affirmative is topical. This makes it to where the NG can just read a bunch of nonsense counter standards and still win the debate because the MO didn't answer something silly like semantics, which means that reasonability is never going to be the more desirable standard to evaluate topicality. They concede that a competing interpretation is inevitable. They make this argument that competing interpretations lead to a race to the bottom, but they again have conceded the fact that competing interpretation is inevitable in debate because it will inevitably become an issue. If we go for topicality, it will never become an issue of which interpretation you prefer, which means there are two competing interpretations that you have to decide between. It means that competing interpretation is inevitable. Furthermore, competing interpretation is more fair because reasonability is arbitrary and inevitalizes things like judge intervention, where judges decide that just an affirmative counter interpretation is reasonably topical, or that a plain text is reasonably topical. This takes the debate out of the hands of the debaters and makes it impossible to be negative because a lot of people don't like voting on topicality. The next argument, you can extend fairness in education now, but in a world where they get access to things like their advantages, which are not